Fruit! Fake! Fake! Fake grapefruit! Fake! Liar! You liar!
Well, there's The Prepared Mind, that show, and then there's the show in Washington, D.C. Which one is the clown show, folks? Who has the truth? Who has the facts? Well, I was coming back, getting ready for the Prepared Mind Monday night broadcast, and I thought, I guess it's Monday. Now what? Well, I think it's more of the same, and I've just been hit with different philosophical perspectives all day. And one of the questions I asked myself is, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong about October 4th? What if I'm wrong about the intentions of the people in power? What if they're actually the good guys? What if, what if? A lot of what ifs. But then I went back to, well, do I have a right to be wrong? Should I be allowed to be wrong? Can I share how wrong I am with others? Do I have the right to speak? Literally, do I have the right to speak? Well, in other countries, you don't. If you speak and the wrong words come out, you can be arrested. You can be sent to jail. You can be ordered to be silent by some fruitcake who calls himself a judge, wears a black dress, and who knows what he's got on under it, or she for that matter, or it, or shim, right? They can tell you what's right. But what if I'm correct? Shouldn't being correct be allowed? Isn't it a right? You see, when you're allowed to do something, that indicates that you're asking permission, that you need permission. You need a permit. You need a license to speak. Or is it a right? Which is it? What if I'm half wrong? Is that allowed? Is it my right as a human being to be less than perfect? Well, John, you're half right. That's right, I'm half right. People want to focus on where you're wrong. We should be focusing on where we are correct, right? What if I'm 99% wrong, but I'm still 1% right? Does that 1% qualify as good enough and my right to express that one tiny percent? Should I be able to share it? Speak it? Well, what about thinking that, right? Well, you're mostly wrong. You're nearly all wrong. Now, folks, I'm talking about me, but are you actually thinking about you and your right, your privilege, your percentage? Isn't it up to you to choose for yourself what to believe, what to think, what to say, what to share? Well, okay, John, 1%. What if I'm fully wrong? Do I have the right to be wrong? As a human being, as an existing entity on the planet, do I have a right to be incorrect? Maybe I'm right about everything else in life, but when I come here and sit in this chair, I'm wrong. I'm fully wrong. Do I still have a right to be? Or am I to be silenced if someone else labels me as wrong? So then I sat and I thought, well, who is it? Who is it that gets to judge correct and incorrect? And if being incorrect is not allowed, how can we judge the difference between correct and incorrect, or even measure the qualities of the differences in belief? Can correct and incorrect be applied to history? I would think so. Science? Certainly. What about religion? Well, that's pretty personal, right? But those who want absolute control, folks, demand absolute control over what is allowed to be spoken and heard and thought. I say this, folks, we got to fight for our rights, or we're going to forever lose them and become slave to this system. Stand up for the right to be wrong, right? Whether it's 1% wrong or 99.99% wrong or incorrect. You and I, we have the right to that option. The choice, the process of free thought, individuality. Now, in life, we can make the wrong decisions and we go down the wrong paths and we don't make very much money, or we don't find personal happiness. We don't find enlightenment. We don't have good health. We don't have a lot of things if we make the wrong decisions, the incorrect decisions. Well, who's to blame for that? Well, you are, naturally, right? I would be for mine. But really, folks, who is the judge of correct and incorrect? Really? Now, when it comes to history, they want to say what is and is not true history. They want to rewrite history. Can you argue against that? Well, no, not if they don't let you, not if they don't allow you, not if you are shamed into silence. Right? We have a good idea what history is because we were taught a version of it. Was the version you and I were taught as older folks over the age of 40? Was it 99% correct? Was it half correct? How about, was it just 10% correct? And then how does it compare to the alternative histories that are being taught in schools today? Are those even 1% correct? Or are they 99.99% incorrect? Yet we're being told that's the truth. That's what we have to believe. And they'll silence you for objecting to it. What about science? Science used to exclaim and proclaim and brag about the fact that everything is open for debate, that you can prove something one way until you have another piece of evidence that proves it's something else. And that was science, always questioning the conclusion if more information could be added, if more paint could be put on the canvas and you could see a clearer picture. Right? Talk about something that is not 100% correct. Science, which should be able to be quantified either through physics, right? Higher math, chemistry, facts, anyways. And then, of course, religion. Oh, look out. Religion, culture, tradition. What's correct and what's incorrect? Well, isn't there a way to measure that? What is ideal and what isn't? How do you determine if something is good or bad, a failure or success? Shouldn't we be allowed to judge for ourselves by looking at the facts, looking at what is and is not? So that brings me to the next topic I wanted to share. Well, in the city of Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, someone who worked in the field of journalism. Is journalism correct or incorrect? Is it a science or is it all propaganda? That's another question, but we all have our ideas, don't we? We'll get back to that. A journalist, folks, in Philadelphia has been murdered. The big question, why? Why would someone murder a white guy? Because he's white. Looks like he's in his late 20s, early 30s. Kind of a handsome fellow. His face looks kind, nice person. Why was he murdered? It's a mystery, right? Police, they don't have a clue. They're not saying anything. But what if a few facts come out? What if there's a couple of things are released? Are we allowed to think for ourselves? Right? According to the reports, this fellow who was murdered, his name was Kruger, his last name. He was gay, and he advocated as a journalist for LGBTQ causes and rights, and he fought for the homeless and drug addicted citizens. So now I have a few facts, and I can think, I can compare, I can apply what I know. I have a direction, a motive, I have historical precedent, all in my own head to think about. Am I developing a conspiracy theory? Or could it be the facts, the truth? Am I 10% right or 90% right? Well, I have my answer, folks. And the question is, should a conclusion that I have be shared with everyone else? Do I have the right to share this with you right now? I could be 1% correct or 99% correct. Hell, I could be 100% correct. What if I'm only 90% though? What if I'm 51% correct? Mostly on target. Should I share it? Should I have that right? Does free speech matter, folks? What if my correct conclusion, I'm more than 50% correct, so I'm on target, but what if it's not popular? Should I still be able to say the words? I think that this guy, this Kruger guy, he wasn't killed by a right-wing lunatic who didn't like his LGB activism. I think he was killed in a love-hate issue due to his corrupted nature and his lifestyle, looking at his subculture and the activities he was most likely involved in. I think the groups that he traveled in and their corrupted lifestyles resulted in his murder. That's my assumption, folks, based on modern behavior, modern historical references, and modern perspectives. Is what I just said a conspiracy theory? That this guy was killed not by someone who opposed his activism, but rather someone that was, sharing a life with him, someone personal and close to him. In fact, I think if I understand my criminal, what do they call that? My understanding of within the criminal justice system, criminal psychology, that most people are murdered and it's an act of passion and it's very personal, and that impersonal murders are less frequent than those, right, where people are killed by those who know them or love them or hate them, right? But still, conspiracy theory of mine, right? Well, if it is a conspiracy theory, should it be discussed, right? Will we just pretend that the facts that we know about out there, history, criminal behavior, stuff that's understood, should it just be ignored because it's unpopular? Can we apply the same thinking to how we perceive politicians, though, and the history of corruption and evil that they live in, and determine their judgment, their authority? In my opinion, yeah. What's the difference, though, between looking at politicians and making assumptions and looking at, murdered gay journalists and making assumptions? Well, we know that politicians are corrupt and they lie. So why would we ever listen to them and obey them? Because of their corruption and because of what their corruption leads to more often than not. Why should we listen to an activist who lives a corrupt and immoral lifestyle? Because we know what their decisions end up leading to. So I'll say this: get prepared. The authority around us, over us, whether it's city, state, or federal, is corrupt beyond our imaginations. Yeah, open your eyes, look around. You're only going to see a tiny fraction of what's going on. But use your imagination, open your eyes and see it. That's why we're prepared, because we're seeing enough evidence, folks, at the local, at the state, at the national level, at the international level, and we can even detect it beyond that. Like, why do all these bad things happen? There's a power, there's an authority that's beyond all of this, right? There is. So I'll tell you about this. Free speech. Should it be allowed? Can we think for ourselves? If we're not allowed to discuss, to hear what others think, to gather information, if we're not allowed to decide what is relevant and what is irrelevant, how are we supposed to know the difference between good and bad? Well, get this, folks. It has now been unveiled The veil has been lifted away, and there is now a suspicious activity report. What is a suspicious activity report? It's called a SARC. Right, a SARC, suspicious activity report. It is confirming that Hunter Biden wired money to the alleged members of an international sex trafficking ring. This is in the Gateway Pundit, by the way. Right. So again, here's our government. Here are people within the government engaged in, well, corrupt behavior, twisted, perverted freaks. And who gets to tell you to be quiet and what you can talk about? Who gets to tell you to go get your sheep vitamins? Who gets to tell you to shut your mouths and stop thinking for yourselves? Why are we listening to these people at all, folks? Because they put themselves in positions of authority, and then they get to threaten us. They get to tell us what is good and what is bad, like this clown here. Lindsey Graham, who is a U.S. senator, and he had a suggestion for conservatives, people like you and me, who want our southern border protected. He says, hey, if you want border security, then you have to support funding for Ukraine. Well, that makes sense, right? In my book, no, it does not. Why do we have to have money for Ukraine if we want to protect ourselves? See, this is the false dichotomy they give us. This is just the insane logic that these people have, that we have to believe them, trust them, give them what they want if we want a piece of what we want. That if we want our rights, we have to accept their restrictions. That if we want to live, we have to behave as they tell us. I tell you what, folks, they're pushing for a war with everyone. They're pushing for a war with everyone. I'll give you some more, folks. It is Monday. You know, now what? Now it's time for more SHTF, right? The judge who is dealing with Trump's legal hearing, his courtroom hearing, where New York City and its prosecuting Grand High Inquisitor Letitia James, right? The judge in this is completely acting like a clown. It is a clown court, and this is government persecution. The judge is playing for the camera. He looks at the cameraman. He takes his glasses off. He smiles and laughs at a time where a president of the United States is in court over an absolutely insane lawsuit. This is the world we're in, folks. Can you imagine sitting in a chair in front of a judge who is going to make rulings and determinations about your life, and then have them start laughing and acting like a clown for the cameras? To them, this is a joke, folks. They now own this system. It's a play toy for them. It's a play toy. And they're the ones that tell you what you can and can't think, and what you can and cannot believe. Right? Does a judge really have authority? In all truth, no, folks. No, the authority that's been vested in judges is supposed to be invested in like people who subscribe to law and order, decency, morality. When they say all rise, people weren't supposed to rise at the presence of the judge, but rather the book that he held in his hand. Right? That they swear an oath to be moral and decent and to do what's right. I doubt they even carry their Bibles into the courtroom now. They think they are the gods. And this is what they're doing, folks. This is how they treat you. Now, you're not allowed to kick a dog or a cat, for that matter. You're not allowed to abuse animals because it's wrong. But how do they treat us? How do they treat Trump? Is Trump a cat or a dog? Is he an edible animal in the barnyard? Yet he's being treated, folks, less than one of them would get. How about our January 6 prisoners? When the dog or the cat is in the pound, are they allowed to beat them? put them in the worst unsanitary conditions, torture them, deprive them of what they need for life, give them filthy bowls of sewer-filled water to drink? No, that's absolutely cruel. Yet this is what they're doing to people that they disagree with, folks, people that they have power and authority over. This is our world right now. Shit has hit the fan, and this is what they're doing. This is where they're at. And they want to silence me and silence you. It's not about me being able to talk. It's about you being able to hear other people speak so that you can determine for yourself what is right and what is wrong. Well, if someone's telling a 20% believable story and someone else you've determined is telling a 60% believable story, right? Are you allowed to take the information from both and choose for yourself what to believe? Well, they don't want you to choose, folks. Like, there's a lot of doctors out there that I think are full of shit when it comes to what they're saying about the Jim Jones juice and cerveza bug. I think they're making a bunch of crap up. I think that they're probably 60, 70, maybe 80% right. And that there's a lot of hyperbole and a lot of fear pouring out there. But then there's government doctors who demand that you obey them, that you believe every word they say, and you can't argue with them. And I think they're probably, folks, no better than 20% accurate. That they have a little bit of truth and they're sprinkling all manner of lies and horse shit on it and telling you to believe them. It's a dangerous world, folks. It's absolutely dangerous out there. And I'm going to give you an example of it. We're supposed to be conservative, patriotic Americans who believe in law and order. And so we've chosen a political party that we register with or affiliate most closely with. And we're supposed to say, yeah, when you know, that's the party I chose. And so therefore, in my mind, as moral as I am, that's what that party is. Well, is the Republican Party that good? Are they the actual party of morality? Well, they're not openly pro-abortion, so they must be good. Or is this the lesser of two evils we're looking at? And is, let's see, if the Democrats are 99% evil and the Republicans, well, they're only 49% evil. You know, their evil factor is way lower. Should we like that? Or should we expect better? Well, this is the road we're going down, folks. You can either get on the Republican road to hell, or you can get on the Democrat express lane where there's no toll stops. You get there a whole lot faster. They're both bad, and they're both leading us to SHTF. Now, John, how can you say that? What are you using to come up with that kind of analogy? Are you making up a conspiracy theory? This uniparty, that both parties are bad? Well, there could be good people in the Republican Party. Of course, there could be some. But for the most part, what are the Republicans doing? Well, they're being led in the House of Representatives by Kevin McCarthy, who just happens to live with a man. What is his name? Frank Luntz. Right? Yeah. So we can trust his morality, right? What crowd is he rolling with? Is he kind of rolling with the crowd that the journalist in Philly is running with? Does he hang out with the brotherly love crowd? Does his corrupt morality extend beyond the bedroom and into the rest of his life? Makes me wonder. Well, that's the House of Representatives. Surely the Senate is full of much better people, right? Surely they are. Well, get this, folks. Fact. Sam Bankman-Fried. That's right. Sammy the fraud. This is the guy who took people's money that they wanted to invest in cryptocurrencies, sent that money over to Ukraine, laundered it, brought it back to America under his control through his private little piggy bank that he gave himself full control over, and started giving that money away to politicians. Well, good thing we have the U.S. Senate with all those Republicans in there. They'll stop the bad stuff. Well, wait. Sam Bankman-Fried met with Mitch McConnell, Republican leader in the U.S. Senate. And guess what he did? He donated multiple millions of dollars to the people that McConnell said he wanted to run. the anti-Trump Republicans. That's right. How American is Mitch? How Republican is Mitch? How conservative is Mitch? How patriotic is Mitch? I talked to somebody from Mitch's state, and Mitch's state, right, is the whole state. It's not just a little congressional district. And you know what I was told? You don't dare say a bad word about Mitch McConnell because of all the money he's brought back to those little towns that he represents. Oh, okay, so you can buy the people. That's how this works. Everyone's for sale. So if they buy Mitch and he hands a little bit of that money back down to the people, they're supposed to be happy about that. Right? How American is Mitch? Or is he a political Benedict Arnold? You decide. See, these are the questions we ought to be able to ask and talk about. This story right here, if media was honest, if media was neutral, they'd bring it up. In fact, you would think a Democrat media would want to bring this up now. Mitch McConnell is a political beneficiary of meeting with Sam Bankman-Fried, an incredible scumbag who stole people's money and gave it to politicians. You'd think they would want to destroy Mitch McConnell. Mitch the glitch, right? The short-circuiting robot right now. But they're not. Why isn't the mainstream left-wing media doing anything? Because this is the game we're playing, folks. It's Monday. It's the first quarter of the big game. And this is what I dug up today. This is what I found. But free speech isn't allowed. And at some point, they're going to shut me down. And I'm going to ask you, are you going to be able to carry on thinking for yourself? Where are we going to get information? Information that is true and honest, accurate. And how are we going to learn to think about it if we don't think for ourselves? Interestingly, today at work, I was asked how we could get more people to perform like I do and think like I do with regard to the trade I'm operating in and complete the missions and tasks that I do. Right, to kind of help create a manual on how to make more business Johns. I found that kind of interesting that they would want that from me. How do we get more thinkers? Well, it's certainly not by sending them to public schools. It's certainly not by limiting what people, hear and see, by shaming them or censoring others. We've got a big fight in front of us, folks. This is how I wanted to kick off the week. I'll kick off the week with this. So I got Jolene here. I got Uman here. I got you here. Hell, I think we ought to have a conversation. Let's see what questions you want to talk about, folks. Let's just jump right into it. I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to roll right into, I'm going to roll right into the inner circle. And we're back. All right, everybody. I know you got stuff you want to talk about, think about, share with others. And remember, this is what I tell you guys. I go, get your questions up here. It shows the rest of the world that it's not just me. It's not just that other guy in that other channel. It's just not that other guy in that other channel, that we all have thoughts, that we're all independent, that we all like information, that we all can choose for ourselves. And we can determine what is bullshit and what isn't. And if we're getting a story that's half truth and half crap, we can decide for ourselves what the crap is. We don't need fucking fact checkers. We don't need censors protecting us from misinformation and malinformation and disinformation, especially when we have people like the Biden administration, the Biden family, the Biden cartel, all of their mouthpieces. We don't need them to tell us because we know they're full of shit. In fact, folks, the Attorney General of the United States government, the master gaslighter and liar himself, Merrick Garland, had this to say. He said, quote, "We do not have one rule for Republicans and another rule for Democrats." That's how good he is at lying, folks. He lies so well he can even fool himself. Now, that's a liar, right? But he's not fooling me or you. I don't believe that they have one rule for Republicans and one rule for Democrats. I think they have one rule for people who are playing on their team and making them money and making them powerful. And they have one rule for the rest of the people that oppose them. It's not really about Republicans and Democrats. It's about playing the game. Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy play the game and play it well, don't they? All right, Jolene, let's have some fun. Who wants to say something right out the gate? And it's Ooman. And he says, history has been written by the victors for centuries. Who really knows what really happened? Very true, right? Genghis Khan. Was he really a bad, mean guy? Or did he spread civilization, law and order, technology, thought, philosophy, medicine? Well, if you read one set of books, he's a really bad, mean, conquering guy. If you read another set of books, I'm sure someone would tell you about all the benevolent things he did, right? How about the Vikings? Were the Vikings good guys or bad guys? Well, it depends on who you read, right? They go down to Europe, you ask the French, they don't like the Vikings. Right? You ask the people in the countries all over the Mediterranean, they don't like him at all, right? Ask the Russians. Well, the Russians have a different take on the Vikings. They actually provided 1,000 years ago, the nomadic Russian people, some of their governmental institutions. But then again, maybe that history that I read about was a lie. Right? History is always written by the victors. It truly is. So what is a more believable book? A history book written about England in 1810 or a history book written about England in 1910? Or is it more about where the book was written? A book written in Boston in 1810 is going to read a lot different than a book written about England 1810 in London. Right? They'll probably tell stories about how the Americans are a bunch of bad people. You bet, of course. Who knows what really happened? The people that lived at that time. Now, what I found fascinating growing up is old people. Old people who lived through World War II. Old people who knew the attitudes of politicians, the attitudes of people. They experienced Pearl Harbor, not in person, even though those people are still around, some of them. People that were in the military, they could tell you a lot about what was actually being done and thought. How about the assassination of John F. Kennedy? Right? Who knows what really happened there? Well, you know, if they don't want to control it, they let people talk freely. If they don't want people to know, if they want to control the narrative, the story, and write history, well, they stop people from talking. How many people do you suppose were murdered who are around Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas, that day that John F. Kennedy was shot in the head? Folks, a lot of people died. A lot of people disappeared. A lot of people were silenced. That's who really knew what happened. The people that got killed because they wanted to control the history and how it was recorded. Anyways, Uman, thank you for following up with that great statement. I appreciate it much. Jolene, shall we move on? Shall we step into the next one? We've got Mick in the UK. He says, hi, John. Does the catacombs in Paris and other cities throughout the world have anything to do with the Great Reset that could have happened before? Oh, you're challenging me, Mick, and I appreciate it. What is Mick talking about? Catacombs in Paris. I know exactly what he's talking about. City underneath a city. Did you know that in a lot of cities around the world, there are entire buildings, city streets, living areas that are 100% underground, as if they were buried And one of the names for this is there was at one point a great mud flood. There's some kind of a flood event that history doesn't talk about. History does not talk about the mud flood, not the history that we learn in school. Apparently, right, there's a lot of things that history doesn't record, but some people did, and it got into some books. But what evidence is there really about all of the missing children from the United Kingdom that just disappeared and went somewhere else? But let's get back to the catacombs, because that's what Mick brought up. There's catacombs and buried city. The same with Rome, folks. There's entire areas of the city that are underground. The entrances to them are hidden. They're secret. Why would they do that? Could there have been another world, a world with different rules or different rulers, a world that had an accepted history and an understanding that was completely different from what we have today? Could they have had technology and it's lost? I'm going to pull up out of the mental thing this city called Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. And now they've discovered another ancient city, much like Göbekli Tepe. Now, of course, there's a lot of buried ancient cities around the world. But what does history allow us to learn? What do the scientists and the educators allow others to teach? Right? Göbekli Tepe is 10,000 years old, 10,500 years old when they buried it. What happened back then? It predates the pyramids. If we go with the accepted date of the pyramid, it predates the pyramids by thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Why did they bury it? They literally had to have buried Göbekli Tepe. Or was it covered in a giant mud flood? This great reset. What's the great reset? What's the mud? Does this happen to the world every 500 years, every 1,000 years, every 10,000 years? Well, Paris isn't 10,000 years old, but it is at least, I think, 1,000 years old, if not two. Same with London. These towns, these cities are ancient. Did they just get heavy and sink? Or did some other cataclysm come by and wipe them out? Was this done intentionally? Was there some technology that allowed this? Some people believe that the heavens opened up and water fell like it did in the days of Noah. Right? And then the water, where does it go? Does it go down some enormous drain in the ocean? I tell you, folks, it's an eye opener. It's down the rabbit hole into the matrix. And could it be just that? I'm sure you're aware that the metaphysical astrophysicists today love to talk in their theory, and I would call them conspiracy theories, but they'll tell you, oh yeah, we could be living in a computer simulation, kind of like the movie The Matrix. And whatever the people who run the program, who can change the rules of the system, they can do whatever they want. They can create rain for 40 days and nights. They can create fire-breathing dragons. They can make an entire species all of a sudden appear or disappear like the dinosaurs. Right now, what kind of power are we seeing? Well, let's come back down to earth. Let's come back down to the reality that we've been taught, that we've been told we have to believe and accept. Right? That we're too little and too small, too stupid. And therefore, we need to shut up, do as we're told, and just be good little slaves. Yep. We don't have one rule for Republicans and another rule for Democrats. Folks, they have special rules. Right? There's rules for them, and there's rules for thee. Anyways, it's this idea Mick in the UK brought up. Look up mud flood. Look up the catacombs, buried cities. Look up the civilization of the Tartars. Look up giant trees, look up all kinds of things. But most of all, I would ask you to free your mind. Again, you decide what's real and not, what's possible and not. But folks, in all truth, that may be entertaining or a good philosophical exercise, or maybe just a good chance at escapism. Never forget, though, right, this reality that we're in, that we feel, right? This is the one we have to deal with for the time being. Anyways, great topic, Mick. I appreciate that. Every now and then I wander down the rabbit hole, find stuff like that, and go, wow, how about that? It's amazing, right? The hidden history of the human race. I think there's a book titled by that, written by Richard Thompson. And there are other doctors or PhDs out there, folks, that have a different version and understanding of the world based on real facts, like the city that was buried Göbekli Tepe, a complete other civilization that predates all others, yet history books aren't talking about it. They don't want to bring it up. Okay, Jolene, Uman, what do we have next? We have Uman, he says. He says, if we're wrong about nothing happening on October 4th, which is in 2 days, Wednesday, October 4th, in 2 days, we've been told that there's going to be an emergency broadcasting system, that they're going to come on, they're going to do a big test. A lot of people believe that there's going to be a reset of sorts or some gigantic emergency. You get to choose for yourself what to do about it. Anyway, Zooman says, if we're wrong about nothing happening on 10/4, then we should all be prepared to deal with it at this point. That's correct. Absolutely correct. You know, right or wrong, we should be prepared. To the best of our abilities, yes. I guess if you lived in and around Fukushima back in 2012, whether or not you were a prepper, odds are you were going to get washed away in a tsunami, right? It was just a huge event. People in Europe weren't affected. So emergencies can be regional, look out. But in general, you can be prepared to survive just about anything. It is the unprepared folks whose odds shrink very, very small. And so now we get to entertain ourselves. And I don't mean that in a childish way, but rather an intellectual way, and study what is happening. Right? And I don't have to worry about being right or wrong. I just have to be as ready as possible. And I have the luxury of being able to say, well, I can survive that, and I can survive that, and I can deal with that shit over there. I can understand that. I can handle that there, right? Because I'm prepared. Doesn't guarantee that I'm going to make it, right? But boy, if we're wrong on October 4th, we're in for a shit show. You know, in fact, it might be better just to keel over from some activated graphene oxide in your blood so that you die very quickly because their microwave signals trigger a frequency sensitive technology. The rest of us are going to have to put up with a lot of dead bodies that smell really bad after about 2, 3, 4 days. I hope we're wrong. I pray we're wrong. I don't want to be, well, I pray that everyone making those predictions is wrong. I don't want to be wrong in saying that it's not going to happen. I'm hoping it doesn't happen. Odds are, though, nothing is going to happen because we've had many claims that on such and such a date, in such and such event, whether it's a military exercise or the threat of war, or, and we've had this in the past, the emergency broadcasting system. Oh, they have a big announcement. Or the Obama phone is basically the same thing as the Valentine phone from Kingsman. Right? It's gonna come out and it's gonna have all kinds of technology that kills us. Here we are. You know, this is where we're at. What a fucking mess. Anyways, it is Monday. What is next? Ooh man, Jolene, what could possibly come next? David said, is there a nutshell way to explain to someone the difference between libertarian versus an anarchist? Yes. Yes, indeed. Let's start by defining, to the best of our ability, what an anarchist is. An anarchist, or a pure anarchy, is the lack of any government at all. In order for an anarchy to maintain itself, to exist, without falling into the control or hands of a despot or tyrannical dictator, is for all the people to be equally good, without blame and blemish, so that people could live without rules. Well, there is that one rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Does anarchy accept the golden rule as the one and only rule to live by? And does every anarchist promise, swear, and have the ability to live up to that? Well, if the answer is yes, in a world populated with people who are all almost Christ-like in their morality, it could happen. But in an anarchy where there is no government, there are no police, and there are no other rules than that, then someone, say, does something wrong by accident, because accidents happen. Well, someone takes that accident personally and they decide, well, the person that caused this accident needs to pay. Well, in an anarchy, there's no courts. You have to rely on the person who caused the damage to pay whatever they ought to. They should just instantly know exactly what should happen, and the person who was wrong should instantly accept it because it's the best that can happen. But people are imperfect, and then some. So someone would feel like they were unjustifiably harmed, and therefore they would need to take some action on their own to make it right. And so now you have people hurting each other because they're always trying to fix the rights or fix the wrongs and make them rights. Anarchy can't exist. Human beings are not perfect. An anarchist wants no authority at all, and they're willing to take any violent action necessary to create that. Right? Anarchist cookbook and so on and so forth. Now, a libertarian is someone who says, you don't have a right to tell me what to do as long as I'm not hurting anyone else. A libertarian says, leave me the hell alone. I have rights, and my rights are superior to the authority of government, with very few exceptions where we all seem to understand that a government is necessary and that a government and its by necessity can exist and only should exist to protect the people that created it. So that's what a libertarian is, someone who doesn't say no government, they just say government should leave us alone. Government has very specific duties and they need to be focused on the government duties. So, for example, a local government should deal with local roads and local bridges, dealing with the local common good, and that's it, not telling people what to do. At the state level, a libertarian says, well, it's just more scale, right? The state, the country, if you will, should be focused on dealing with issues that don't affect the people, right? That are just about maintaining the common good, the common ways, right? But they should not have the authority to affect us, our property. They shouldn't be able to take through legalized theft, taxes, our property and money. And so on and so forth, up to the federal government, which has been authorized to work and deal with other countries, other nations, and to help ensure that between the states, they all treat each other very well. The state, in one case, treats another state properly and that they have an even footing. Okay, the federal government shouldn't be looking at us, the people, and telling us what to do. The state shouldn't be looking at us and telling us what to do. And local government, county and city, shouldn't be looking at us and telling us what to do. They have no authority to do so, yet they've assumed that authority. And I think that's what libertarians most likely believe. Unless I hurt someone else, you don't have authority over me. Right? So government is in charge. Unlike in anarchy systems, government's charged with, well, keeping the peace, deciding the difference between right and wrong, the court system, to help settle disputes in a manner which makes the most sense and is the most equal, right? You notice I didn't say equitable. It's not about fairness. It's about what is right and wrong. So that's the difference. And that's a big nutshell, David. A lot of people equate anarchy and libertarian because that's what the powers that be want everyone to believe. They don't want you to believe the government should be limited, can be limited, and ought to be limited. Instead, they want to tell you that government is all powerful, that they have all the authority. In fact, government has rights and you have mere permissions. Right? You're a peasant, a pissant, a pissant to them, an expendable, deplorable, disposable thing that has less rights than a dog or cat, and that the government should be able to abuse you, to cruel and unusually punish you in order to make sure all the other pissant peasants behave the way they say to behave. All right, great topic there. Good golly, shit has hit the fan. What is happening? And it is Chin Music stepping into the ring, and he says, hey, they funded the currently insane spending for another 45 days. Another middle finger to us. What's Chin Music talking about? He's talking about Congress. Right? He's talking about Kevin Do-Nothing McCarthy, who has actually done something, but it's exactly what he shouldn't have done. They extended insane government spending for another 45 days. He cut a deal with the Biden administration to keep the federal government funded. In other words, in order to keep them funded, you have to go in debt even more. Let me see if I can explain this. The government says we need more money to spend. So without creating anything, without doing anything to make money exist, they just put some computer numbers in a computer that says, now we have lots of money. And they start giving that out to their buddies. And you and I are told that we have to pay taxes to put that money back that they created out of thin air, plus interest. And that's where we're at. They want deficit spending that we have to pay back on money that they just create out of thin air. It is a middle finger to us. It's a middle finger to us, our country. And I brought up Light and the Loafers, Lindsey Graham, who says if you want your secure border, then you have to fund this insane war in Ukraine, which is genocide on Ukrainian citizens. Ethnic Ukrainians are being slaughtered by the tens of thousands. In fact, they're absolutely surrendering. Over 10,000 alone have surrendered so they don't have to be slaughtered. Yet if we want our border secured, we have to fund that, the Ukraine war effort. And in all of this, folks, have you heard anything from Lindsey Graham or Kevin McCarthy or Mitch McConnell over, hey, thanks, America, for all the money to support the Ukraine war effort, which is committing genocide on its own people. And in return, we're now going to lock the border down. I didn't hear anything about them locking the border down. Did they say and tell, thanks for funding Ukraine, we'll now shut the gates? No, they didn't. Did they say we're going to round up all these illegals and get them out of the damn country so they quit taking our food, our medicine, our goods off of the shelves? Stop taking our hotel rooms, our condos, our buildings, and turning them over to illegals? I haven't heard any promise to do anything for us. We were just told, if you want this, then you'll give us our money for Ukraine. It's kind of like that bully who says, hey, give me your lunch money and I'll stop twisting your arm behind you. Well, you ever give something up? Give your lunch money to a bully and he keeps twisting your fucking arm? That's the federal government, folks. They tell you they'll be nice to you. They'll quit twisting your arm and beating the shit out of you. Only if you do as they say. And then when you do, they keep beating the shit out of you anyway. Yay, government. All right, yeah, but I'm not an anarchist, folks, not in the least. I'm all about law and order. I'm not a lawless libertarian. I just understand the role of government and how it should be limited, how government can be effective, how government can be funded without stealing from the people and subjecting us to ridiculous controls. All righty, this is some good stuff. How many of these questions we got left, Jolene? What do we got left in the board? I know that we run out of time always before I get all the questions answered. Charles Gentry says, my father taught me how to think by making me think for myself. He guided me harshly and sometimes very harshly. I was not as hard on my son, but having to think for yourself works. I tried to be as harsh as I could tolerate without being cruel or mean, but rather teaching real lessons to my sons. Does it work? Time will tell. You hope it works. I think, bullies do a good job of teaching people lessons. They sure taught me a hell of a lot of lessons that had I not been bullied, I never would have learned. I never would have believed. I never would have understood. It works, folks. Getting your ass kicked teaches you some lessons. Thank you, Charles, very much. Jolene, what do we got next? Mr. Uman. We got David. He said, Rome may have burned, but did it really fall? Through the Catholic Church, Rome now controls more than it ever could have in its previous incarnation. Well, with the advent of explorers finding the ends of the earth, the Catholic Church gave up control. Let me step back. The Roman Empire, well, I think it fell. But did it die? Did it extinguish? Or did it just change form? Okay, so through the Roman Catholic Church, it controlled a territory larger than it ever did under the Caesars. It came to control almost all of Europe, Eastern Europe. And since the spread to the Americas, it controls now a massive percentage of South America, Central America, and also Africa. There are is it 20% of the world's population is Catholic? It's huge. It's huge. But the Caesars gave up control, and then the world was ruled by the church. The world meaning the West, right? The civilization that came out of Europe. And then the church, right, gave up control to the kings, and they kind of shared power. And then the kings gave up control of us, the people, or at least pretended to, and let us pretend to control and govern and regulate ourselves through elected forms of government. And now that's, again, going through a change, a great reset, if you will. And we're going to deal with the new Caesar, same as the old Caesar, or the new Pope, same as the old Pope. And they want to call it a technocracy. They want to call it a globalist system. And everything's done for, the common good. Right? We go through all of these different changes. Why? That's a big question I always have, is why did we change from kingship to religious control? Why did we change back? Why were we allowed? Why did they experiment? Why did they put this concept of a free republic and then also democracies out there? Why did they come up with different social and then different economic systems? Right? Republics versus democracies, socialism versus libertarianism. They got to learn from all of them which worked best for what. What works best to control a people? An educated populace or an ignorant one? What works best to control the people? The heavy hand of government or the threatening hand of the church that could commit you to hell? Right? What's better, martial control or psychological control? Or, in modern day, pharmaceutical control? That's right. Pharmaceutical control of all of us. What a great way to control the people with drugs, alcohol, fear, lies, propaganda. Oof. Rome, it burned, it fell. It did not fall all the way, though, folks. Like the mystical phoenix, it rose from its own ashes in a new form, and here we are. Thank you, David. Great topic there. Jolene, we got a little bit of time left. Let's hit into this. Name redacted says, John, you're leaving out cult cabal, the illuminated ones. There are different rules for the Luciferians, including in their own ranks. Very true. There are different rules for different people, different levels. The lie is different at every level, folks. Down here where we're at, we're the little people, right? We get to know just a little bit of stuff, and we have to play by this set of rules. Well, the people above us, they have a different set of rules altogether. They have maybe some few more facts, right? Then there's the group above that, and then here, and then up over here. And the lie is different at every level, and they get more privilege, more wealth. But they also tend to abuse that privilege, or rather say their privilege isn't subject to the rules, the restrictions that we as little peasants have. The cult cabal, the illuminated ones, the Illuminati, the Bilderberg group. Remember when they were all talked about? Folks, the people in charge do not like being talked about. The John Birch Society was probably one of the earliest versions of a group that was organized by free people to expose the cult cabal, the bad guys. And they talked about the United Nations and needing to get out of it, which was world government. This is the John Birch Society I'm discussing. They talked about the mega wealthy and their control over us, and using organizations, pseudo corporate philanthropical organizations, pseudo government organizations like the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations. And it is all developed, evolved. They change names the way some people would change hats, but it's always the same people, right? And they have their own rules for their own ranks, meaning, right, as long as you're playing on their team, you're supposed to be allowed to play. Someone like Trump, they don't like Trump. What great lesson to teach everyone who wants to disobey, right? If you're in their club and you don't obey, right, you get to suffer the consequences. Me and you, we're smaller than pawns, folks. They don't like that we can talk and think and help others think. So that's why we need to keep doing just that, helping others think. Folks, chance favors the prepared mind is yours. God bless America and the free world. Semper Fi means always faithful to what you know to be right, what you think for yourself, what you discover to be your truth. What a world.